You are? Don't see us. Thank you.
There you go.
And is anyone else, just the one?
I need to, sorry, I am, because we're, is that better?
Open.
There we go. Okay.
Is Dr. Vigan opening up Board of Health on April 16th, 2025. Roll call vote? Roll call. Susan.
Lawrence Perry here.
Jillian, I don't think is up. Well,
She's not here.
you know if she comes. Oh, here she comes. Good timing. Roll call.
Perfect.
Emily called.
Jillian Morton.
Jillian Morton, present.
So first is discussion and possible vote on Christopher Souza body. How do you pronounce that?
Susie.
Susie, body art practitioner permit. Welcome. Is this Chris?
Yes, how are you?
Good. Would you like to tell us what you're up to? What you like?
I'm originally from Manamet. Live now in the town. President of the Wareham Little League. I've been apprenticing at Sinners and Saints prior to moving over to Prairie Ridge and hoping to get my my licensing all taken care of today.
And how long were you working at the other place?
Just a few months.
Is that your first place?
Yeah, and I kind of wanted to be closer to home. I can literally walk there.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
And I did see that you, we've had a lot of talk about anatomy courses and all.
the real deal.
And you have the real, you had 24 hours or some such of anatomy.
Oh yeah, more than enough anatomy. A little too much.
Enough for a lifetime.
Yeah, definitely enough for a lifetime. Yeah, through Bridgewater State on you can do all those classes online and stuff like that,
That's
which
great.
is nice.
So there, it's nice to know there is one around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is.
And 24 hours isn't that much.
No, but it's enough.
Yeah. And do you think it was helpful, just for our
Oh,
folks? Yeah?
absolutely. Yeah, it's always good to know.
It'd be nice to write that down for other folks that are looking for one, because we were having problems finding ones that seemed appropriate for everybody.
Yeah, definitely beneficial.
Did you have to,
McDonald, do you have
did you
any?
have to take any prereqs for that? Just out of curiosity.
Not that I know of. I just followed the town guidelines and what I was supposed to do in the town of Hanson, and it seemed to mirror exactly what I needed to do in this town as well.
So you didn't have to prove courses before, you could just apply for that and get in?
Oh
Of
yeah,
course,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Some of them we had found before you had to go to
There
college or
was
something.
prereqs, you
yeah.
had to get
That's
one
what-
before the other, and
So that's really, that would be nice to be able to tell people that there is one around.
You can.
Did you have any comments, Mr. McDonald, on?
no, everything was in order, as far as this licensing goes.
Right. Anyone have any comments? Any comments?
No, not at all. Chris is extremely talented and well suited for this.
Great.
Welcome.
Accept a motion?
Move approval of Christopher Susie from body art practitioner permit.
And I second.
And roll call vote.
Patrick Tropiano, yes.
Jillian Morton, yes.
And Andy Vigan, yes. Thank you, good luck.
Thank you all so much.
And the next is discussion on Title V alternative. Would you like to open it up, Dr. Mr. McDonald?
Sure, so this group that's been put together sent us a letter a while back. I apologize. We've been very busy. Our meetings unfortunately get jumped sometimes with priority things. But we finally gotten back around to the opportunity where we had some space in the meeting for them to come and talk about a topic. Something that we talk about frequently as far as Title V goes and dealing with nitrogen in our water and things of that nature. So they have some information they'd like to present.
Great. Great, and would you guys like to introduce yourselves?
I
And
would like to introduce myself, and I might need Emma's help because I can't seem to get the Zoom
So we can see you up here.
Oh, but not my
Behind.
screen.
I just made you a panelist, so now we can see your screen.
Okay. So my name is Millie Burrows. I'm a resident of East Wareham. I've lived here for about 27 years now. One member who is not here is Brian Horsley. He is the assistant project director at Mass Tech in Bourne. He unfortunately is in the middle of Boston traffic right now.
I'm Susan Mann, and I live in Onset, Point Independence. Our family goes way back. My kids are sixth generation in the house that we're living in. And I am interested in this topic and have enjoyed getting a group of people together, looking into it more.
And we have another member over here who is probably familiar to you.
Maybe. I'm Scott Sobia. I'm the Conservation Commission and the Sewer Commission.
I still don't know where to click to share it. I'm not seeing it on my screen.
Right below, I see a share button.
Yep. So do you see the green arrow at the bottom of the screen where it says share?
I do not have that on my screen.
You're really close to it.
Ah,
There it is.
sorry, I just needed to make it bigger. I apologize for my lack of tech savviness.
Shush, you're human, it's okay.
Is that showing now?
Yes.
All right. So I know we only have a little bit of time. We have a slideshow. There are 20 slides. I'm gonna move through them fairly quickly. And I first just wanna say thank you for the invitation and for allowing us to be here. So how we came to be, Susan is to blame. About a year ago, she sent an email that made its way to me asking if anyone would be interested in learning more about urine diversion and suggesting a tour at the Green Center in East Falmouth. So we had coffee, we talked, I went on a tour, and I was really convinced that it was something that could be helpful to Wareham. So since then, we have very slowly been trying to gather interest, and there are probably about 12 people that make up the core group right now. We have some collaborators that are willing to give information and support, and we have connected with them on Zoom and by email. I'll talk about them as we go along. What we're doing right now is just trying to educate ourselves and raise awareness in the town among residents and also among town leaders. We're lucky to have someone from the Sewer Commission and Conservation Commission and also from the Select Board. All of them are on this committee as residents, not in their official capacities. Forgive me for a minute while I just try to. So our hope is that in the future, for however long it takes us to roll this out and gain coordination and overcome regulatory obstacles and all that goes into this, that we'll be able to implement urine diversion and nutrient recycling for Wareham. In the handouts that you have, and my slide is not advancing, why is that? There we go. You have this one, it might be about the 4th page. I'm not gonna read everything on it, but it explains why urine diversion is a good option. It reduces the pollution that causes the cyanobacteria blooms that we have in our ponds and waterways. And it recovers the nutrients that would otherwise be wasted, being sent to either into the septic systems or into the sewer treatment facility. It is a very inexpensive and easy to install system and can drastically reduce the nitrogen level in the waterways. I am not gonna go into detail on it, you can read it. I'm not gonna waste your time. But we are looking at it as an adjunct possibly to the sewer systems and the innovative alternative systems in town. For all the reasons I've already said and the fact that it's effective in removing nitrogen and very inexpensive per pound to do that. This is a comparison of the price I think this is also in your handout. So you can see that central sewers and IA systems are quite a bit expensive in removing the 8 pounds of nitrogen per year that each of us produce in our urine. That's about 120 gallons of urine a year per person. If you look on down, there are incinerating toilets that are less expensive. And at the very bottom, this is the cost that it is to do this in Brattleboro, Vermont, where they've been doing it for about 12 years, and that's the Rich Earth Institute. They are a wealth of information. They do research and have ongoing education programs. One of the concerns about conventional toilets that I thought, you probably all know this was new to me, would be of interest to this board is that a conventional toilet, as you can see in this picture, sends a plume of aerosol into the air. So in this time of pandemics, when we worry about norovirus and SARS virus and COVID virus, this kind of action in toilets, whether they be in residence or in housing complexes that have shared ventilation, or hospitals or clinics or cruise ships, it makes for very rapid transmission of communicable disease. When you have, before I say that, this is the comparison. These particular slides were shared by Jane Ward, who is a doctor and on the Cape. She's retired. She comes from the Cape now. She presented a whole series of classes on urine diversion and concerns and benefits for the Cape Cod Community College adult learners. And she's available to us possibly as a speaker in the future. But you can see on this chart, in the first column, that's the flush toilets, and all of these features are problematic for conventional toilets. The odors, the plume, the water usage, clogging risk, maintenance on the system, and installation cost. The last two columns show the comparison using indoor composting toilets, like the Phoenix, which is the one that's approved right now in Massachusetts, and the urine diversion composting toilet. So there are many benefits to having a waterless system. One of the things that can be produced from urine, this is just one product. The company Wasted is from Burlington, Vermont. They have just gotten permission from the state of Massachusetts to produce their We Bloom product. It's struvite, which is a phosphorus. It's a slow release phosphorus, one of the essential nutrients for plants. And they have permission to produce it in Massachusetts, which is a huge step and benefit for them. What they do is they're a porta potty company. They've got retrofitted porta potties that separate urine and solid waste, and they use the urine to create the struvite. The remaining urine can then be put into an eco composter. So another thing that can be done is the urine can be used in home gardens, and the nutrients in the urine are readily absorbable by plants. When you use it on a home garden, you do not have to worry about pasteurization. That is a difference from when you use it on a farm field or a hay field. And there is a fairly easy pasteurization process that goes on. This is just an image of one of the ways that it's distributed. They're on the Rich Earth Institute website, and we'll give you a sheet that has their website on it at the end. They have information about comparisons of yield using urine as a fertilizer. This is the pasteurizer that they developed. they have a subsidiary company called Bright Water Tools, and they devised this pasteurizing equipment to pasteurize the urine. Excuse me. It only has to be heated to 176 degrees for 90 seconds, and that is enough to destroy the pathogens and make it safe for application, even for commercial application. And the cost of doing that is 1 cent per gallon. So for a whole year's worth of urine from any one person is $1.20 to pasteurize it. So
Question on,
yes,
how about chemo agents? And
I will get to,
okay,
yep, that is like a whole, not my expertise.
that's okay.
In fact, none of this is my expertise. I should have made that disclaimer at the very beginning. But actually Scott is working on, do you want to say anything about that? Or you want me to just try to
Go ahead,
summarize?
maybe at the end if there are some
Okay.
questions.
You might have seen today, there was an article, it actually came out before in other sources, about the salmon and the results of some of the neurotoxins in the pharmaceuticals on the salmon spawning behavior. Well, they are being affected, and Scott has taken it upon himself to do some delving into this and some more research, and hopes to put together a presentation at some point down the road. So that might be of interest. But I will say a little more about pharmaceuticals in just a second. If I don't follow my slides, I'm lost. So this is an echo composter. Right now, there is one that was installed in 2019 in Falmouth at the Coonamessett Farm. It can take yard waste, leaves, twigs, litter. It can also use food waste from the kitchen. It can combine it with urine and create a compost and or a mulch product or fertilizer product after it's been treated. It's I don't have the figure in my head of what it cost. Was it 8,000? Do you remember? I don't remember. I can get that if anyone's interested. But it wasn't a super expensive one. So if Wareham ever got to the point of considering on a community scale doing this, doing urine diversion, this might be an entrepreneurial opportunity for someone, a septic hauler or some other business person who is interested in doing this, or the town could do it. And my point is, it's not a super expensive endeavor. So when we reclaim our urine, that concern about pharmaceuticals comes up, and will it get into the food that we eat? Because it does filter into the soil and the plants take it up. The Rich Earth Institute did a 6-year study. They found that there were some levels of pharmaceuticals in small amounts in the soil. It was in the parts per billion. In the groundwater, it was even less than that. It was in the parts per trillion. In the lettuce that was grown on the grounds where they tested, they found very minuscule amounts, and it would require eating a pound of lettuce every day for 1,000 years to ingest the equivalent of caffeine in a cup of coffee. Caffeine being globally the most prevalent drug in urine around the world, especially Seattle, I've been told. So the particles that were detected were in the nanoparticle range in the lettuce. Hopefully, we'll have more opportunity to talk about that another time. Oops.
So it seems when the urine is in the soil organisms take care of getting rid of pharmaceuticals. Whereas if it goes into the water, it doesn't, and
Right,
it's
so
there.
right now, a lot of it will go into, or some of it will get into the water, like the nitrogen.
All of it.
And then you have the chemotherapy agents being in the water.
Yeah.
So this is sort
Yeah.
of to compare it to that.
Right, and that applies both to the wastewater treatment facility and also to the septic systems, because the septic systems put the effluent below the soil organism level. And so it's readily available for leaching into the water table and then running out into the estuaries and streams. Thank you for bringing that up. I won't go into great detail on this, but you can see there are various collection methods in the first block and various transport methods in the second block. And then it can either be brought to a treatment facility to be pasteurized, or it can be done with a mobile pasteurizer at a farm. And this is being done in Brattleboro. And then the farmer can apply it to the fields.
Do you know in Brattleboro how big it is and how many people are being serviced by this? Curiosity.
It probably is on their website. I do not
Is it?
know the answer to that. I don't know if
You can look.
anyone
I
does.
don't have a number, but
I have gallons.
when they started anyway, people were collecting in their homes and bringing it to a depot where they were accumulating it and then treating it. And the farmers really liked the product because their fertilizer is so expensive, and there was like more of a demand for it than a supply. I'm not sure what level they're at now.
On their website, it said that they collected 12,000 gallons of urine each year. They've saved 2.3 million gallons of potable water since 2012. They're the first and the largest community scale program of its kind in the US, platform for research and education. And that is all I included in my notes. But we have access to staff there. In fact, Julia Cavici, who is the education director, is coming tomorrow night to Onset Bay Center. And I'm sorry, she's not coming. She's virtually presenting a talk tomorrow on urine diversion as a tool for nutrient recycling. And she has a whole series of education presentations prepared on different topics related. So she is available and willing. We're talking about partnering with some people in Dartmouth at Round the Bend Farm, and possibly some other local organizations. So anyway,
Her talk tomorrow is she has like 6 different talks, and tomorrow she'll be presenting a little bit of each of them, including urine diversion around the world, like where different people are doing it.
that was something you had asked about specifically, yeah. She does do a talk just focused on that as well, so tomorrow will be a smattering of it. Okay, so, thinking ahead, some ideas that have been tossed around in committee is what if the town used porta potties that separated urine, then that could be utilized for recycling. In Martha's Vineyard, there is a housing development that is installing urine-ready plumbing because they're anticipating the changes in the regs by the plumbing board. There's already been one change by the plumbing board and also by DEP. So they are making it UD ready so that residents can hook up and use these equipment for urine diversion when that goes through. Something we might want to consider if we are putting less volume into the pollution control facility, it might free up money for incentives for residents to use these kinds of devices. It certainly is cheaper than hooking up to the sewer. And it would accomplish the town's task of bringing the nitrogen levels down in the waterways. The other possibility might be to have an exemption from hookup. So I just tossed those out because those are all ideas that were kind of free-flowing when we got together.
And putting the urine diversion plumbing into buildings as you're building them is pretty cheap. So if you
So one article I read said it was 536 million that we're looking at. I know that figure is really higher, and by the time we get to 20 years out, it's gonna be higher again with the rising costs of materials and all. So Senator Montigny and Representative Chris Markey and Representative Mark Sylvia have collaborated and co-sponsored a proposal. It's Senate Bill 638. It is now in the Joint Committee on Environment and Natural Resources. And what they want to do is establish a commission. It would include the 14 towns, 2 representatives from each town. And this commission would be exploring ways to reduce costs around the area, because we're all facing the same challenge. And so Brian Horsley, some of you weren't here when I mentioned this earlier. He was going to be here, but he's in traffic in Boston. So he sent an email with the information he would have presented. Before I read that, I just want to say that we have a tour coming up of Mass Tech with Brian on April 30th from 1 to 3. If anyone here is interested, please email me. You'll have my email at the end. And we will put you on that tour. There are also tours coming up at the Green Center in May. Those days are not determined yet, and you're invited to come on those as well. Or get on our email list for any upcoming meetings that we have as a committee. So this is from Brian Horsley, Assistant Project Manager at Mass Tech on the Cape. He says, Mass Tech is working with the town, and actually, let me go to the next slide. He's working with the town of Falmouth to design a UD pilot project in which they are targeting completion for November in time for the 2025 town meeting. This planning work is aiming to gain regulatory approvals with the State Plumbing Board and Mass DEP for urine diverting toilet fixtures, the associated plumbing and storage system, management of the urine after collection, either for disposal or ideally recycling as fertilizer, and nutrient accounting to allow towns to utilize urine diversion as a means of meeting nutrient reduction targets in impaired watersheds. The project we are planning will entail the installation of 50 UD systems in residential homes with monitoring for 3 years to collect data on system functionality and nutrient removal rates. So that is what they are working on. They had a nice grant that was issued by the state in this past year to help move that forward. And this is what, if you want to circulate those, this is just a slide with the websites and Brian's email on there, and Julia from Richard, her email is on there. Mine is at the bottom. Feel free to contact any of us with questions that you have. And this last slide just shows what we're aiming for, a closed loop, a sustainable system that's affordable and good for Wareham. And it would be wonderful if Wareham could lead on this. It would be something to be proud of. So, any questions for us?
I'd like to say a few things.
I'm sure.
Okay. I've actually installed 3 DEP-approved composting toilet systems out on Onset Island.
Awesome.
They're in use right now. They have been for, I think the first one I put in, 5 years ago? Something like that, maybe 6 years ago now. And they seem to function well. They have no problem with them. About every 3 months or so, you get a container like this that's all composted and ready to go. So the technology's out there. It's been out there for quite a while, in fact. The thing that I didn't like about the thing is that they don't really recycle the water. So you use the gray water and you put it in the ground. And it would be nice if they recycled it, pumped it back up and kept using it. That would be nice.
Yeah.
And I think the future is that someday.
Yeah.
You know,
I
you'll
think
reuse
California
the
is
water
doing that.
because why not? I mean, it's just clean water. It's just gray water. It's, for all intents and purposes, a small filter and you can use it like crazy. However, I am not in favor of doing anything like this by town because first off, it shifts the cost to the town to manage the program, to pay for all the help that's required to manage it and everything else. And the towns just can't afford it, in my opinion. okay? They can't afford to manage the program. If you know what the budget looks like, it's been bad for a long time with Proposition 2.5, and it just doesn't work. So I don't agree with a town doing anything on its own. I think the state needs to step up to the plate for this stuff. And they need to say, they've already did by approving these composting toilets. The one I used was a system out of Canada. It uses a very small amount of electricity in order to handle with the urine and stuff. And it's pretty amazing, really. I mean, I was amazed once I got them installed out there. And, you know, I thought I'd be hearing from everybody. You know, you walk out of there and I'm like, oh my goodness, these people are gonna be calling me every day. There's gonna be problems, you know, whatever. Not one call. They seem to take care of them. They handle them well, because it's relatively simple for them to do. So I was thrilled with that. And as you know, I came before, I came before the board at the time, because at the time they, it was approved by DEP, but, you know, you still had to get the local approving authority to go out and use it, basically. And so it's a marvelous system, and I think it's a good idea. And I think at some point, all of this is gonna happen, when they get to houses and so on. But it really needs to happen at the state level. The state needs to step up to the plate. You can't have one town doing it and the other town not, 5 towns over there, 1 town over here. It just doesn't make any
Right.
sense at all.
I agree to some, but we also had, you know, many years ago with a Buzzards Bay Coalition worked with us, and we, you know, started looking at the new D-Night systems. And it was, and not that it was right or wrong, but we did get that going. Here, we started in Wareham, and other towns got going on it. From the cost perspective, I'm seeing a little bit that the cost of these are relatively cheap. The town is involved with paying, you know, not that there's any room anymore at the plants, but that we are the ones that, you know, the town organizing to sewer a certain area of town and all. So we're already in the organization. If somebody could say, you know, a portion of the community could, it might be, make it cheaper in maybe certain areas where, I don't know, I mean, there are various ways to look at it, but it sounds like this is cheaper than,
I understand. The only problem you have there is the nitrogen regulations you made are terrible. They're not, they don't function. The systems don't do what they're supposed to do. None of
Well,
them
right.
do. They never meet the criteria that they're supposed to meet. They're really not
That's
done
true.
well at all. The distances from water or this, that, and the other thing, all that whole idea is changing now. In fact, they say the nitrogen should be allowed into a wetland because the wetlands will use up the nitrogen. Not allowed into a pond or a stream or whatever, but in the wetland plants, they eat it. Just like you're talking about, when you take it out and you sprinkle the stuff on them, the plants use it up. And that's a good thing. You see what I mean? Right, so it depends on where it is and whatever.
be
So-
nice to have a repeat
Yeah,
from
so
Buzzards Bay
all the
Coalition.
the guidelines have been terrible.
Mhm.
They really have. I mean, this has been really a terrible nightmare, the way they rolled this whole thing out. Because they tried to get it through town meetings and town meetings refused it. They turned it away outright because the people just weren't interested. And so then they went around the back door and they came into the Board of Health and they made the Board of Health do it as regulation. And that's not the right way to do things. The right way to do things is to get your government, the state government, to say, okay, this is what we're gonna do it. And right now, I do septic, as you well know, and I got 24 different towns. And every single one of those towns have different rules. And some of the rules are wrong. I'll tell you right now, they're wrong. And you really need to have the state have guidelines, like in Rhode Island. You go to Rhode Island, all the rules are the same. And the state governs everything. Smart idea. See what I'm saying? So that's why I'm not in favor of that. I'm not against doing something to make it work. Obviously, I put 3 of them out there. So I'm just saying.
Whether you make it volunteer, I mean, it's certainly learning about the program so we know what's out there, what's possible. You know, the town is
I have a
already
question.
involved.
Sure.
Yes,
How
Susan.
much would it cost a household to make this kind of a change?
Well, first of all, in a household, you can use a cubie. Do we have a picture in the handouts?
Yes, there is.
Yeah, there's one.
So it's essentially a 2.5 gallon or a 5 gallon container with a funnel attached. And you can take that off in a spigot to empty, and you can use it in your garden. It will cost you, if you buy it from Rich Earth Institute, less than $100. And if only the man in the house uses it, or if you put a pea pod urinal in the wall, which is still in development but almost ready to be marketed, I think. Right there, you're gonna reduce 40% of the nitrogen going to the sewer system.
So I
80% if
think
both
it's
of
a
you do
good
it.
idea to introduce the idea to the population, maybe through town meeting. And let them
Education.
know what it would cost them to do it and just let people try. Then approach the state. I don't even know how to go about doing that, but how would you go to the state and say,
Well, Mass Tech is already working with the
Yeah, they
state
gotta be working
closely.
with- DEP
Yeah,
is
and
the
if
place
Brian
to
was here, he
start.
could tell you more. So these points are well taken, and I share your concern about, we don't have a lot of cash in town.
Yeah, it's really not a,
This is something we can bring back, and when we're talking about the summit in the fall and things that are gonna be touched on and experts that might be able to be a part of that, maybe helping to analyze that a little bit would be worth exploring and doing it in a summit form. As a resident and a person who values the environment, as I'm sure everyone here does, the state is a slow moving train. And so if we wait for the state to do it, we're gonna lose our resources, We could be dead for a whole lot of other reasons by then. So I'm not willing to give up trying to move forward, and doing it first on an individual level is a way for us to start.
you have to tell people about it?
Yes, and that's what we're starting to do. We have a talk tomorrow night. We're gonna have a series, and we are engaging with Rich Earth Institute, so and inviting people on the tours. These are ongoing. And so we will get the word out, and people will start to do it. And I think when the project that Mass Tech is working on with the 50 homes in Falmouth, when that is done, I think that it will help gain momentum, because people will see the benefits of that.
And so those on an individual, it's easy if you have your own garden
Yeah,
and all, but
Yes,
it'd be
'cause you don't
hard
have
if
to
somebody
transport
lives
it.
in a complex with numerous people and there's no garden out there. It really needs to be coordinated with the town or somebody. You can't, each
That's
person
when you
can't
need,
do it
yeah,
on
a
their
collection
own.
vessel, but it could be IBC totes at a station next to the water pollution control facility, for example. I'm not suggesting that, but just for example, people could go, you attach the pump, you empty your urine, and when there is approval for the hauling, that's one of the big things, we call wasted, they come down, they pump it out, and they take it wherever and make fertilizer. It could
And
be
they're
as
waiting.
simple and inexpensive as that.
So a farm entrepreneur who wants to make a
Yes.
little money, if you got somebody like that, the Rochester Big Farms, whatever,
Yes.
to buy these things and start, then you can get it in volunteer basis to start with.
Yeah.
Helps the town until people see it
Yeah.
works better.
And I think our opportunity, I know you have other things on your agenda, so I don't wanna take, more of your time. If this commission comes into being, it will be good to think about who can, be a representative to people from the town, with knowledge that they can bring to work in collaboration with these 14 towns, and then we're not isolated. And then the state, it's part of the state system. So lots of work to do. We're probably miles away, but it's a start, and I really appreciate that you all were here and listening and invited us.
Thank you for.
Scott there you are. You have something you wanna say before we
Comment?
break up? I'm gonna
Yeah, just-
disconnect.
In all of our conversations, and I'm relatively new to this, about 6 months only, is no one has ever talked about, in my hearing anyway, a town taking over the responsibility for a project like this. More the conversation has been about opportunities for entrepreneurs to complete the cycle, as it were. So to pick up the urine, to do the processing of it, and to distribute it to the farms and so on. No one has been talking at all about any kind of town taking over. Contrast that with So in the sewer commission, we've just gotten the final 20-year of the comprehensive wastewater treatment plan from the engineers, and that'll be presented to the select board pretty soon. But over the 20 years, they envision to deal with mostly with the nitrogen regulations that are coming down from the state. I don't know if there's gonna be an EPA or not in the future, but anyway, coming down from the state, it'll cost about $594 million in 2024 dollars for Wareham to take care of its public health and environmental needs. So if that were just shouldered by the 40% of Wareham residents that are currently sewered and paying for the sewer, wastewater treatment and so on, we'd go from a budget of $8.5 million to $38.5 million a year, amortized over the 20 years. Those numbers just don't add up. We don't see a large infrastructure bill coming out of Washington to fund Wareham's sewering system or from the state anywhere near the kind of money. So as a sewer commissioner, I'm really concerned with finding alternative methods for dealing with nitrogen and these other pollutants. We haven't talked about pharmaceuticals, but that's another whole conversation. The beauty of urine diversion is that you don't have to deal with those things in the septic systems or because it's taken out beforehand. Anyway, we can talk about that at some other time. But so I'm interested in this in the urine diversion as part of a larger picture of dealing with nitrogen. Just like the towns on the Cape, we're going to get it at some point in a big way. So I'd like to get ahead of it. I appreciate the efforts of a number of residents in town to start the ball moving as far as education and so on.
Thank you all. Thank you,
Oh,
Susan Millie.
can I say
and-
something?
Yes, of course.
Oh, sorry. Okay. So one of the things that really is ringing for me is the education / marketing of it. So I'm in the marketing space a lot, and I see that especially Gen Z. So like people always hate on Gen Z, but they're very into the environment and restoring things. So I think if you could maybe pursue some sort of like collaboration with the younger population to get them involved, because this is going to be their future, right? So yeah, right there. Like it's the Gen Z. I'm millennial, so the Gen Z is all about seeing this, and they don't. There could be a real opportunity to like find someone who's into marketing and obviously we're talking about urine here, and people. I think the more exposure that you get, the better just in general, the funding, things like that. So that's just my little takeaway from it. I think it's a great idea. I had no idea about it. So that shows you not only the education, but put it in a form that the younger generation can 60 seconds, like what does this do? How does it work? I just think
That's
it. Sorry, that's the reality.
60 seconds.
We do have a
but-
Gen Z person as
We
part of
do,
this core group.
I love that. I love that. Yeah, I just think that you can, we see it all the time now with like the younger people. So, and it's gonna be their problem, so they should be helping.
And
Yeah, the comment I'd make is if you wanna look again forward, as people go to build, you really need to talk to the developers and try to key them into the idea as, okay, you're gonna plan this development, let's plan a method by which you can take advantage of some of these things. So to, touch base with the planning board or the Board of Appeals or whatever, the Board of Assessors, get a sense for.
I think that's part of your marketing play. You do marketing, I can tell you, developers, it's all about the money. So it's gonna be how can they make that work into a plan? They don't wanna hear about it unless it's gonna be able to like upsell, maybe they can upsell it
It's cheap
environmentally.
and they can attract.
Right, so like you have maybe a
affluent
marketing for those
population.
people, and then marketing for Gen Z, and then marketing for more of like I don't know. I just think it's a great opportunity to actually really do some creative marketing.
very
The
interesting.
cost of regulation now is, a house is like 25%. The cost of a house, 25% is regulation.
Wow.
The HERS ratings and stretch regulations and all
It's
that
getting,
stuff.
and it's getting more all the time. So when you start to ask them to do more stuff, they start thinking, whatever. My father was in the bicycle business, you'll love this. And they were talking about building a particular bicycle, because he made bicycles. And there was a particular part that this guy thought had to be on this particular bicycle. And he said, my father said to him, well, he says, is it important that we couldn't sell the bike otherwise? And he said, well, no, we could probably get away with it. He says, so maybe we should leave it out. He said, well, it only costs 35 cents. He says, yeah, but we're gonna build 20 million of them. You see, so it's the money that matters. And she's absolutely right.
But it could be, yes, it's gonna save costs. There's definitely a pathway for that.
It's expensive to put nitrogen into our system, and it's expensive to remove it.
Absolutely.
So this idea of just removing this from the cycle altogether, I mean, making a cycle out of it instead of a linear system, that's really what we're talking about.
Very
I'll
interesting.
tell you, well, I'll tell you after.
Yeah.
What comes to mind, like when we're talking about urine deviation is, okay, any moms here with kids who are outside, particularly of boys, like that kind of thing. Where you're like, don't do it. Right, like, don't do that. And I'm like, oh no, maybe they should be doing that, like on the plants.
Yes.
I'm like, I'm thinking that actually a practical thing. I might be like, okay. But just little things like that, it could really catch someone's attention to think about it in a different light.
On that note, I will say the You're in My Garden guide, it's a 4-page guide, it's on the Rich Earth Institute site. They also have a community focused 55-page guide for scaling up on a community level, and it covers a lot of aspects of it. So, thank you.
Thank you very much for
Thank you.
presenting, very
Thank you very
interesting, and maybe
much.
we
Thank you.
hear from you guys again.
Yeah.
Future?
We'll stay in touch.
Yeah, please do. So, health agents report, Mr. McDonald.
Absolutely.
We'll circle back to the disease reporting as we always do. Title V, review and variance, we've done four conventional systems since our last meeting. 2 new perk tests, 2 upgrades. We've had no emergency responses. Inspections are ongoing as always for 2025. Sam and our coalition inspector are out taking care of those inspections. Beachwater, we're waiting to hear from the lab as far as pricing and the schedule goes, but should be any time now. And we did select an intern from the DPH program, so we will have one for the summer, which is great.
Right.
Our public health nurse, as always, is doing a fantastic job. She's working on an interesting case with TB right now that we've been discussing quite a bit recently with requirements, and just the story itself is very interesting. So that's something that's out there right now to be aware of for as far as disease reporting goes. And I think that's the most exciting part. As far as the rental program, we do have an article on town meeting. Myself and possibly Sam will be there just to answer any questions if necessary, but that's the portion of changing the splits for the program that we talked about probably November-ish. So we can kind of right the ship a little bit. That's all I have.
Great, thank you. Infectious disease report. The newest thing that came out that I thought was interesting for everyone is that if those folks over 50 that get their Shingrix vaccine to prevent getting shingles, there is some data showing that there might be decreased dementia in that group. So it's another push for everyone to get their vaccines. And it's for folks over 50. We still have issues with the measles outbreak because of 97% of people with measles have not been vaccinated. And vaccination is safe, and there's, so trying to get everybody vaccinated so we don't have a measles outbreak here. If you were born before 1957, you probably have antibodies to measles, so less likely to get it. Those that are born after that, most everyone's had their shots, I hope, around here. Most people have, but if you haven't, you might consider getting a shot. And so that's We're still, flu season is winding down. We have not seen as much flu. COVID is there as usual, but it's a little bit less right now. I don't know if you've seen it on the water, they sometimes are able to check the water in the town. So, and
Couldn't tell you.
I haven't seen it recently. But sometimes you can tell when the spike's coming by wastewater. Those are the big things right now. Next is any announcements from,
I have none.
and then a discussion and possible vote on the meeting minutes from April 2nd.
I move we approve the minutes of April 2nd, 2025.
And I second, I reviewed them.
And all those in favor, roll call.
Tropiano, yes.
Julia Morton, yes.
Amy Vivian, yes. And I think that's any other business?
Move to adjourn.
Any second?
I second.
And all those in favor, roll call.
Tropiano, yes.
Julia Morton, yes.
And Amy Vivian, yes. So thank you, everybody. Interesting. Thank you very much.